Peace and blessings, my functional men and women. Today, my main man, Neil, he wants to talk about overtime. So, Neil, take the floor, baby.
Man, so I just want to talk about overtime because I see it's an epidemic and with working class, middle class people. So what I see, what we do is that we constantly do overtime, and we use that overtime to buy things that we can't afford, or we use that overtime to get bigger houses or do this and that. But and I understand you're making more money. So for instance, you do overtime, you're making $60,000, and you can do overtime, you can make $80,000. And you're saying, man, I made $80,000 this year. But where did that extra overtime go into? If that extra overtime went into buying a car a more expensive car, or buying a house that's way more expensive that you don't need, what is it going to? And so what I'm trying to do is caution people about the overtime. Because what happens is, what I see when a lot of people do overtime, their health starts to deteriorate on their health.
Yes.
So what happens is you don't have time to exercise, you don't have time to eat healthy because you're doing overtime, so you don't cook or eat in the house, so you always go out and you grab anything that's convenient. And what I've seen people do overtime is their weight constantly balloon and their health constantly faded. So if you're gonna trade overtime for your health, it's not a fair trade, because one thing, the most valuable thing, regardless of what anybody say, the most valuable asset you have is your time.
Yes, and your life.
And your life.
Yes.
And so if you're using your time to dissipate your life, meaning to make your physical health worse, then that ain't good time. And also, so I got a quote for you from the ancient Chinese secret.
Mm-hmm.
It's called "A Master of the Demon Valley." He said, things are means to nurturing life. He said, but now deluded people use their life to nurture things. So you get where I'm coming at? So basically people use it, when you buy a car, in the end, a car is supposed to get you from point A and B. That's it. That's nurturing you. That's helping you from jumping on the bus, standing out in the rain. That's helping your life. But when you start using your life to nurture a car, to get a Porsche or something it's not a fair trade. And so
let me ask you this, because I agree with you wholeheartedly, but at some point, say you got a daughter in college, you might say, oh man, I gotta grind a little bit for 4 years and make sure she get out of college and then scale back, because I think that over time, if you have something really good that you're trying to do, you can do that.
Of course.
Like if you got something like you go, like, man, I know people like the parents might pass and they might have to buy a burial and pay for their funeral and stuff like that. So you do stuff like that, but just what you're saying is don't live above your means. Just keep on working overtime and put the car into your overtime. Because a lot of times, like on my job, overtime will stop at a certain time of year. And now these dudes scrambling, trying to make this money up because they done went out and bought a house or a car or a boat because it is overtime.
And that's exactly what I was going to get to.
Okay.
Overtime is useful if you're using it for a future endeavor.
Okay.
For instance, if you're trying to get a house, you and your lady trying to get a house,
Okay.
and you're trying to get the down payment, that's useful.
Right.
If you're doing anything for your kids, especially in college,
Right.
if you use, even for yourself, if you're using overtime so you can pay to educate yourself, to learn a trade that will help you in the future,
Right.
that's all worth it.
Right.
But what I'm saying is to use overtime to buy things that not necessarily going to help you out.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? In a big picture.
Right.
So if you using overtime to get a business,
Right.
that's useful. If you using overtime to say, man, I want to go to synagogue.
Yeah.
I want me and my lady to go to synagogue, and when I go, I want to be able to have a certain amount of money to do the things I want to do.
Right.
That's useful.
Right.
Because they say that the happiest people spend money on experiences, not things.
Right.
So that's where I'm getting at.
Okay.
So overtime, you know. And
now, I tried it, man. I'm going to tell you what it do for you.
what's that?
Put you in another tax bracket. I was like, I'm working overtime, getting paid, getting paid. I ain't saying, I never forget it, man. And the people told me, man, you owe us. And I'm like, man, I ain't think about them, man. I got a check with 3 zeros on it one time. And you know, once they garnish your check, they gotta leave with 1/3. They can't take all your money. But they took all my money, man. I went to the people's. I went down to human resource. I was like, man, something wrong, man. Ain't nothing wrong. You been garnished.
You overtime. Yeah. No.
But the next couple weeks, they gotta give you like 1/3. They can't take all your money.
Right.
Hey, but champ, they took that money home.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's another thing about overtime.
Yeah.
And
no tax bracket.
Man. And another thing.
You gonna owe.
What happens is, and like I said, we already talked about the means why we should do overtime. But another thing where I see what happens is, guys will do overtime their whole career, but they don't develop their own hobbies, they don't develop their own skills, their own business, they don't develop the education they need to move up in the business. And so what happens is, when they quit, guess what they have to do? Nothing.
Yeah.
They haven't developed nothing. You
Right.
haven't developed a hobby. You haven't developed another life.
Right.
Because in the end, this life is about balance.
Man, most of the people that I know retire, man, they go home within a year or two.
And die. You know why? They didn't develop a life outside of their work.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing that I think is really important about the overtime. I'm not saying don't do it,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is be cautious that you use overtime as a means for something that's going to better your life.
Let the overtime work for you, don't work for the overtime. I got you, Tim.
There it is.
I understand, Tim.
There it is.
Yeah.
So that's it, man. I just want to do a public service announcement about this overtime, man. Make sure, overtime is good if you have everybody. What do you think about this? Everybody should have an idea or try to create a business, no matter what it is,
Yes.
for themselves,
Yes.
outside of work. So if you're using overtime to put into your business, that makes sense, because that's an investment in you. And if you're using overtime to put, if you have investments that you want to put into, if you want to buy a 4-unit apartment building and use that as an investment tool, that's good, because what you're trying to do is you might be trying to retire early and better yourself.
Yes,
So
sir.
that's good for overtime. But remember, if you constantly do overtime, one of the things that can happen is that you don't develop a life outside of work. And then when you don't have work, you stuck.
Man, you're not getting that rest.
Man,
these dudes that's getting money say sleep is for suckers, but man, it's a lot. That's the whole nother episode. But man, it's a whole lot of good stuff going on while you sleeping. If you ain't getting that sleeping, hey Slim, that's how they torture jokes. That sleep deprivation.
Oh yeah.
Man, don't
You start
get no
hearing
sleep.
stuff. Yeah. Man, what? Told where yet? They told.
Man, sleep is important.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother show. I'm gonna leave that alone, but
don't
you gotta
need
get
that.
your rest.
Yeah, you got to get. And that's another thing I see.
Got to get your
I
rest.
see guys
homie.
doing this overtime, bloodshot eyes.
Got to get
Everything.
that rest.
If you ain't getting that rest and
Man.
sleep, you need 7 to 8 optimally,
Yeah.
but at least 6. And Joe was working on 4 and 3.
Yeah.
Nah, you're not. Your body ain't repairing.
Yeah.
So that's my public service announcement, man. Guys, overtime is useful if you're using it for the proper tool to better your life and better your family life, your children, and your wife, and etc.
Right.
But do it with caution, and always try to create a life outside of your job. So so that's it, man. So
Okay, we finished?
We finished.
Oh, please like, subscribe. We're trying to build this channel. And please go out and vote. We got to get this administration out of here, Chan. And listen, I don't even know Biden platform. But whatever he doing, I know I don't know nothing about Biden.
Yeah,
But I know he better than what we got.
Man.
It can't be no worse.
Hey, yeah.
Yeah, it can't be no worse. So
Yeah,
please like, subscribe, and get out here and vote.
That's it. So we gonna go out on y'all mind, body, and soul.
And always give the Most High the glory. Love you guys.
Yes, sir.